Imagine your house is burning. While flames still consume the furniture, someone knocks on your door with a reconstruction contract in one hand and a gas canister in the other. Welcome to the most lucrative and morally questionable business in the modern world, post-conflict reconstruction, where the same people who finance the weapons design the humanitarian aid plans. Today, we're going to analyze 80 years of this pattern, from Berlin in 1945 to Ukraine in 2025, passing through Vietnam, Iraq, and looking ahead to what's coming with Gaza. Because history doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it rhymes with chilling precision. And I tell you, the conclusion up front, when this video ends, you'll never watch international news the same way again. May 1945. Berlin emerges from World War II, transformed into a monument to human destruction. 70% of structures in ruins, 2.5 billion cubic feet of rubble, and 1.5 million people homeless. Germans were surviving on 800 calories daily. For context, less than what a 3-year-old child consumes. No heating, with epidemics and 70% infant mortality. But here's what's fascinating. While Germans were dying of hunger, Holland was destroying surplus grain. Denmark had butter nobody could buy, and Switzerland was letting food fats rot in warehouses. The Allies prohibited Germany from trading freely. It was pure revenge, disguised as justice. The Morgenthau Plan of 1946 established that Germany should return to being an agricultural country. Destruction of 1,500 factories, steel production limited to 25% of previous capacity. It was like curing a patient by amputating their limbs. The result was as unpredictable as it was disastrous. Paralyzed Europe because someone had decided to sabotage its industrial engine out of pure revenge. But then came the real turning point. It wasn't compassion. It wasn't humanity. It was fear. Anti-communist panic became Germany's best friend, with France and Italy seeing their communist parties grow. Washington entered on existential crisis mode. The solution? The Marshall Plan. Now, let's dissect the truth behind American generosity. First, stop communism. Every dollar was a vaccine against the Soviet virus. The enemy was no longer Nazi Germany, but victorious USSR. Second, create captive markets. Ford needed to sell cars. Coca-Cola needed to sell soda, and the entire American corporate machinery needed European buyers with money. Third, permanent economic control. The money came with more conditions that a prenuptial agreement, mandatory cooperation, reduction of trade barriers, submission to external supervision. This is economic colonialism in suit and tie. Okay. So the Marshall Plan injected 3,000 million between 1948 and 1952. Sounds generous until you consider they were loans, not donations, with interest and political conditions that tied Western Europe to the American orbit for decades. Germany received barely 3% the crumbs of the cake. But here's the plot twist. Germans turned those crumbs into economic engine that would eventually dominate the whole Europe. The Marshall Plan lesson is that reconstruction always comes with fine print.
And whoever controls the money controls the country's future.
I just want you to check the Bravo and see if he can put an adjustment on his Roger that.
Vietnam was America's second attempt to replicate the Marshall Plan success. Spoiler, it went spectacularly wrong. But the American strategy was brutal in its simplicity. Overwhelming technological superiority. They dropped more bombs on Vietnam than in all of World War II. 7.5 million tons of explosive. Napalm and Agent Orange transformed Asian jungles into a lunar wastelands. But the Vietnamese, instead of surrendering, built a tunnel network that made the New York subway look simple. In 1968, the Tet Offensive was technically a tactical defeat for the North, but a masterful public relations victory. For the first time, Americans saw on their colored TVs that they were not winning.
The flash apparent.
Walter Cronkite, America's most trusted man, basically said on CBS, "Folks, we are screwing this up." Then public opinion turned faster than a pancake. April 30, 1975, Saigon Falls. The last Americans flee in helicopters from the embassy roof. Vietnam reunifies under communism. The brutal conclusion: 58,000 Americans and sub to 3 million Vietnamese died for absolutely nothing. But here's what's really interesting: the Reconstruction. No Marshall Plan, no magic dollars, no Western aid. Vietnam had to rebuild itself, economically blocked, excluded from financial institutions, cruelly sanctioned. The result 50 years later, one of the fastest growing economies in Asia. Ho Chi Minh City has skyscrapers that rival Manhattan. They produce your Nikes and your iPhone. The supreme irony, turns out they didn't need a bombed democracy. They just needed to be left alone. The Vietnam lesson: you can destroy buildings, but you can't bomb the will to rebuild. And you definitely can export political systems at the tip of a missile.
Was the most brutal irony in modern history that the United States had to return to fight the monster they themselves created, ISIS.
Battle all the way.
What's it been like?
Devastation, total devastation. We come through one battlefield, it looked like the Iraqis were pointing their guns in one direction and the US had come up from behind them possibly.
They didn't even know we'd been here.
If Berlin was the original model and Vietnam the failure, Iraq represents the perfection of modern corporate plunder. 2003. George W. Bush accuses Iraq of possessing weapons of mass destruction. Colin Powell presents evidence at the United Nations that later revealed to be intelligence errors or outright lies. March 19 to 20, 2003. Chocano begins. The name couldn't be more appropriate. The shock was felt by Iraqis. The O by taxpayers when they learned the bill. Deaths 460,000 plus 200,000 civilians. Cost $2.2 to $3 trillion. Result: sectarian chaos and the beginning of ISIS. But let's focus on what really matters: Reconstruction as business. At the heart of everything, Halliburton, a Texas corporation operating like an oil hydra in over 70 countries, with nearly 300 subsidiaries, affiliates, and divisions. The connection: Dick Cheney had been Halliburton's CEO before becoming vice president. This cosmic coincidence allowed Halliburton, through its subsidiary KBR, to receive $16,000 million in contracts until 2006, most awarded without public bidding. So here's a quick list: Bechtel, $2,400 million; Fluor, $1,000 million; Parsons, $1,300 million; Halliburton, $580 million. Additional, Iraqi contractors receive just $1,200 million total. A tip compared to the American feast. 2006, the Inspector General revealed that only 36% of water projects and 70% of planned electrical projects were completed. So where did the remaining money go? Good question. The Coalition Provisional Authority lost $8,800 million that simply evaporated. 2012, 70 American individuals and companies won $8,000 million additional in Iraq and Afghanistan. The coincidence? All had generously donated to Bush campaigns. 2019, when German Siemens was about to win a $40,000 million contract to rebuild Iraqi infrastructure, Trump pressured aggressively for it to go to General Electric. The clear message: Iraqi freedom. The freedom to choose exclusively among American companies. So here's the Iraq lesson: humanitarian war is the last refuge of speculators. There's no disinterested aid when billions are at stake. February 24, 2022. Russia invades Ukraine, the largest conventional military conflict in Europe since World War II. Deaths: 15,000 civilians, plus 200,000 soldiers. Refugees: 7.3 million outside, plus 71 million internally displaced. Estimated reconstruction cost: well, 400,000 million. It's like the entire population of Switzerland had packed bags twice. But while bombs were still falling, someone was already doing calculations. September 2022. Zelensky meets via video call with Larry Fink, president of BlackRock, the world's largest investment fund, managing $10 trillion. The topic: how BlackRock could advise for free on creating a reconstruction fund. That magic word, for free. When a company managing 10 trillions offers something free, ask yourself what they are really buying. Here's the ethical problem: the size of Ukraine. BlackRock is one of the largest investors in the defense sector. 6.3% of Lockheed Martin, 7% of RTX, 6.2% of Northrop Grumman, and 6.1% of Boeing. During 2022 and 2023, defense stocks rose between 8% and 28%. The United States allocated 45,000 million just in military aid to Ukraine in 2022. So do the math. More war equals more contracts. More contracts equals more profits for shareholders. And BlackRock isn't just a shareholder, it's the largest institutional shareholder on the planet. May 2023. Ukraine officially designates BlackRock as advisor to the Ukraine Development Fund. The plan mobilized 15,000 million initial to rebuild energy, infrastructure, agriculture, industry, and technology. Sounds good until you consider 50,000 million is only 3.75% of the 400,000 million needed, but it's the gateway to control key assets. So here's the Ukrainian assets under potential BlackRock administration. Medinvest is the largest steel producer. Dissect is the largest energy conglomerate. Naftogaz is the state gas company. Ukrainian Railways. Ukrainian Railways is the entire network, and Ukrenergo is the national electric operator, and the legendary black soils, the most fertile in the world. As quid pro quo for helping, BlackRock would become administrator and, in practical terms, owner of Ukraine's main assets. It's 21st century colonialism, but with PowerPoint and index funds. The revolving door between BlackRock and the Biden government. Wally Adeyemo, Deputy Treasury Secretary. Eric von Nostrand, Treasury Advisor on Russia and Ukraine. Mike Pyle, Kamala Harris, Economic Advisor. So, when you are designating the reconstruction of a country at war, and your ex-colleagues are in the key position of the government financing that war, the lines between public and private interests disappear. But then, something happened that the financial puppeteers didn't expect. Donald Trump wins the November 2024 elections. January 2025, BlackRock abruptly suspends the project. Negotiations with institutional investors freeze due to a political uncertainty. Translation? Without US government backing and with Trump pushing for an agreement that will leave Ukraine weak, the business is no longer attractive. The fund was scheduled to be announced in July 2025 in Rome. It had support from Germany, Italy, Poland, but when the United States formally withdrew, the house of cards collapsed. Corporate philanthropy has a very clear limit: the bottom line of project profits. 8 decades, 4 conflicts, the same pattern. Berlin 1945 was a total destruction when it came the Marshall Plan with 3,000 million. Result? Well, for 40 years of economic and political dependence, American control via NATO, captive markets, and generational debt. Vietnam 1975. Its American defeat becomes in a brutal economical blockade. Result? 30 years of isolation until opening to the market. Today, Vietnam is the cheap labor for Western corporations. Iraq 2003. The humanitarian invasion. With 2.2 trillion in expense, result Halliburton and friends get rich and Iraq remains devastated. With oil control, sectarian chaos, and the rise of ISIS. Ukraine 2022. The proxy war is when BlackRock designs the reconstruction. The result that was projected: control of strategic assets in exchange for aid, until the political wind changes and everything is cancelled. So you see the pattern? Reconstruction is not about helping, it's about control. Control of resources, markets, political decisions, economic future. And here's the part that should concern all of us. This pattern can replicate in any geography that presents the right conditions: valuable resources, institutional weakness, geopolitical tensions. It's not a matter of
It happened to them, not to us.
it's a warner. This can happen anywhere. Let me be absolutely clear about what I've learned. First, border wars and the reconstruction are not inevitable natural phenomena. They are human decisions with human consequences, and someone always benefits. Second, international aid always comes with fine print. The Marshall Plan wasn't generosity, it was geopolitical investment. Reconstruction funds aren't charity, they are vehicles for economic control. Third, the real cost of liberation is paid by future generations on both sides of the conflict. American taxpayers finance wars that enrich corporations. Liberated countries pay with sovereignty, resources, and decades of dependence. Now, let's look ahead. What awaits us? The most likely scenario: a forced peace agreement that leaves Ukraine weakened, territorially divided, and economically dependent. Without the American backing, Zelensky expected Ukraine will desperately seek European funds. Italy, Spain, Germany, each will want their share. What Zelensky offered, BlackRock will offer to the highest European bidder. Ukrainian natural resources, its legendary black soils or energy infrastructure, will become collateral for reconstruction loans. In 20 to 30 years, Ukraine will have rebuilt its cities, but won't belong to itself. It will be a disputed asset, territory at auction, an investment opportunity with citizens included. And the future of Gaza? Well, this conflict presents unique dynamics, but familiar patterns. Israel has already announced reconstruction plans for Gaza, but reconstruction under what terms? With what conditions? And who will really control the territory after war? Expect to see the same model. International funds for humanitarian reconstruction, contracts to Israel and American companies, permanent control disguised as security supervision, decades of economic political dependence. The difference with Gaza, the ethnic and the religious component adds layers of complexity that will make peace even more elusive, but the economic model will be familiar. Here's what we must understand. These patterns repeat because they work, because they are lucrative, because enough people benefit to perpetuate the system. The only way to break the cycle is 1. Always question official narrative. When they tell you a war is humanitarian, ask who gains economically. 2. Demand total transparency in reconstruction agreements. Every dollar, every contract, every condition must be public. 3. Conscientiously engage in our country's decisions, because citizens' apathy is the best ally of these schemes. History doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it rhymes, and the rhyme we are hearing in Ukraine and Gaza is painfully familiar. The question isn't if this will happen again. The question is, where will it happen? Where will it be next time? And will be alert enough to recognize it before it's too late? Because at the end of the day, you can destroy buildings, bomb cities, raise entire nations, but there's something no missile can eliminate: the historical memory of those who refuse to forget, and the human capacity to learn if we decide to pay attention. If this video made you think differently about international news, share it, because information is power, and complicit silence is complicity. Thank you guys. See you in the next analysis. Meanwhile, read the fine print always. Please, if you like this video, I invite you to subscribe and give like to this video, and follow me on X as AnnaCorner11, and also in my TikTok account. Thanks.
For me.
this video is not long enough, something happened. And just when we thought this video was only past history, Venezuela just became our real-time example. January 2026. The United States captured President Nicolás Maduro. Trump's statement left no room for interpretation. Venezuela has the resources America needs, and we are going to resecure control of the country. It's not diplomatic subtlety. It's the playbook we just analyzed, but without the PR filter. Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserve, 303,000 million barrels, gold, coltan, diamonds, a desperate population after years of crisis, a weakened international isolated government. It's the perfect storm we've seen reproduce for 80 years. Come on, think about it. Berlin had industrial infrastructure. Vietnam had strategic geographic position. Iraq had oil. Ukraine has fertile lands and natural gas. Venezuela, it has all of that. We are already seeing the first step of the pattern. Step 1. Intervention with humanitarian narrative. Liberated the Venezuelan people. Step 2. American companies are already positioned themselves. Chevron, ExxonMobil, waiting for reconstruction contracts. Step 3. The inevitable development fund that will turn Venezuela sovereignty into financial collateral. What I think is going to happen is in the next 6 to 12 months, we'll see provisional government international backed oil contracts to American companies without bidding, IMF and World Bank reconstruction loans with devastating conditions, permanent control disguised as democratic stabilization. But here's the truth. The corporate playbook always forgets. In all the cases we analyze, real reconstruction depended on the resilience of their inhabitants, not on external generosity. And here is a quick examples. Germany, after 30 to 50 years under the American hand, it was the German entrepreneurs who turned crumbs into economic engine. Investment funds work because Germans decided to rebuild their nation with or without permission. Vietnam, the real leap came when they decided to join the United Nations in 1977, when they accepted international trade on their terms, not by American permission, but by sovereign decision. Iraq, today still under American yoke, it's Iraqis who are rebuilding universities, modern mosques, modern cities. Citizens themselves took the leap of faith. Venezuela won't be different. Oil contract will come. Economic control will be brutal. Builder funds will arrive like flies to carry on. But in the end, in 20, 30, 40 years, it will be Venezuelans who decide whether their country is just a corporate asset or a sovereign nation. History doesn't just rhyme. Sometimes it's simply copy and paste. But it also teaches us these empires design the terms, but people write the ending. When we update this video in 5 years, Venezuela will be reconstructed under terms it didn't choose, but in 20 or 30 years, it will be depend exclusively on Venezuelans whether their reconstruction is for them or for ExxonMobil. The lesson of Venezuela 2026 is twofold. The imperial playbook never changed. It just waited for its next scenario. But human resilience doesn't change either, and that in the end is stronger than any investment fund. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to be its next chapter, and those who do learn can regret the ending.